All right. Welcome, everybody. We are very excited to have you on today's call. So we're for the RMP cohort, we're moving forward with community planning with an emphasis on food security. And I'm sure many of you have heard a lot from me in this last week related to our cohort retreat. So yeah, just wanting to welcome you all and wishing you a good transition into the fall season. I don't know about your areas, but we're definitely feeling cooler mornings and a lot of moisture throughout the day here in the southwest part of Colorado. And today we're really focusing in on um, food security. And so we're really excited to have folks from the Swinomish Indian tribal community, Jamie Donatuto. And I didn't see Elena on just yet, but she might be joining us as well. And then we'll have an opportunity for questions for those folks and you know, the work that they're doing with their clam garden and whatever other food relevant topics that they bring up. So we'll go into some questions and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from Jackie Schaefer with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. And I know we've heard from Jackie before, but I think Jackie's really going to be coming from a different lens, just sharing different aspects of ANTHC, and then also about the ICC, her involvement with that as well. And then after that, we'll leave some time for, of course, our conversation related to the retreat. You know, just some general updates and any lingering questions that you all may have. I'm sure there are still many, as it has been a process to say the least. So thank you so much for bearing with us there. And I think with that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over here very quickly to Jamie with the Swinomish Indian tribal community. Jamie, if you want to take a second to introduce yourself and pull up any slides, feel free to take it away there. And you, yeah.
Thank you, Kelsey. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Donatuto, and I'm the Community Environmental Health Analyst for the Swinomish Indian Tribal Community, where I've been for the last 23 years. For those of you who don't know where Swinomish is, we're about 90 miles north of Seattle, so we're in the Pacific Northwest. Tribal cohort is a Salish nation, and I've got some slides to share about some of the work that we're doing. But our Vice Chair, Alana Quintasket, I just spoke with her a bit ago, and I'm not sure she's going to be able to make it. She's getting pulled away on tribal business, but she said she'll pop in if she can. And let me pull up my slides. Not sure why they're not coming up. To give you a bit of background about this work, I put together a slide deck that just gives an overview of all of the food work we're doing. I'm not going to dive deep into the difference between food security and food sovereignty because I'm guessing that potentially Jackie might do that more, but I just did want to point out that I do think that there is a difference between the two. So I think food security is a community who is able to access food to meet their nutritional needs, whereas food sovereignty is that the community actually has control and say over what it is that they're able to access, which is, I think, particularly important for Indigenous communities. Let's see. So just to give you an idea of where Swinomish is, as I said, we're about 90 miles north of Seattle. We're located on the southeast portion of Fidalgo Island. So Swinomish is a really low-lying reservation that is pretty much completely surrounded by water. And while we are not part of your relocation group and managed retreat, we do deal significantly with issues of storm surge and sea level rise, among many other impacts. I won't talk about it here, but we essentially looked at how storm surge and sea level rise was going to impact the reservation. We used a set of Indigenous health indicators to determine what community wanted us to focus on first. And we talked about sovereignty, we talked about mental health and food security, community connections, cultural use. And the number one thing that people said that they wanted us to focus on first, knowing that everything is important, was the teachings and ensuring that the teachings were passing from the elders to the youth. And so due to that, we developed what we call the Swinomish 13 Moons curriculum. I know that many of our communities use a seasonal 13 Moons harvest calendar. This one is specific to Swinomish, but I do think that there is a lot of evidence about how this is something that is fairly common in Indigenous communities around the world. So the work that I'm going to show you is all based on this particular curriculum that is suited for Swinomish. And the whole idea is that while the tribe may be losing some areas, it's important to think about continuing to connect the youth with their homelands, to ensure that they have that cultural foundation, which is the basis for health and well-being from Swinomish's point of view, and knowing that the tribe's boundaries are far past just the reservation boundaries. So right now we're in the moon of the elk mating cry, which is late September to early October. Each moon starts on a new moon, goes through the one full moon cycle until you hit the next moon. And in our curriculum, what we do is we provide at least one activity that is based on a plant that is available, a plant that you can harvest at this time, and one that's based on animals that you can harvest at this time or hunt. And so this is just a really brief overview of how it works, but this curriculum is taught to kids. And so this is the after school club and the Boys and Girls Club. And so just thinking about what's available, lots of hands-on activities. We also work with the preschool and we have community-wide events. So this particular picture is from 2 moons ago. It's Moon of the Blackberry. But you see a picture of Hayden, who's our intern, and he's harvesting blackberries because we're going to do a community-wide jam sesh. And so the whole community gets together, makes jam, and then we give it away to the elders during our community clam bake. Another part of what we've been working on is we have a large garden called the 13 Moons Garden. And while this type of garden isn't traditional to Swinomish, we do think that it's part of both food security and food sovereignty within the community. So this is a picture of our elders garden, which has higher tables that are a little bit easier to get to. This is our medicine wheel garden, and many of the workers and students who have helped us put this garden together over the years. And this is our hoop house, which we're pretty excited about. So we're able to provide fresh fruits and vegetables all year round. And in the picture on the right-hand side, one of our staff, Joe Quintasket, was super excited because this was the first year that we were able to harvest a whole bunch of potatoes, including Ozette potatoes, which you see in the back. We have produce stands that we run weekly. They are 7 stands across the reservation. They're self-serve. We stock them, as I said, once a week. Some of these are from our garden, some of them we purchase, but the fruits and vegetables are part of this food security piece where when we did a community health assessment, many community members said that they didn't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, mostly because we don't have a store on the reservation. So there isn't one that's easily accessible except for a convenience store that doesn't have any fresh fruits and vegetables. And it was an important part, obviously, of thinking about access to healthy foods. We also offer, you can see in the last picture, but also this is a close-up for this picture, we have a wild foods and medicines program that we run. And this is also part of the 13 Moons curriculum. So not only teaching people of all ages to reconnect with the lands and how to create medicines, as one of our teachers says, you know, the store is outside your door and nature is so smart. She has all the medicines that we need. But being able not only to share how to prepare them, but also to share them in general. So people are able to come in and either make requests or pick up medicines. We also have an apothecary in the Elder Center that people are able to access if they're looking for something specific. So these are just two examples of some of the medicines that we've harvested and we share. We also run community events. So this is a picture of the community clam bake. Quickly, we just dig a big hole, put some hot rocks in them, create a fire. Once the fire goes down and the rocks are hot, put the shellfish on top, then burlap sacks and steam them. So in the top picture, the burlap sacks have just come off and people are starting to collect the shellfish. In the bottom is just a picture of someone really enjoying it at a community event. And the last thing I wanted to share with you briefly, which I think might be of interest to some folks, is that we built a clam garden wall let's see, August 2022, so a little bit over a year ago. And I'm guessing a lot of you on this call know a lot about clam gardens. For those that don't, this is an ancient indigenous technology that's very active, particularly all up and down our coast. But in the BC region, there are several clam gardens that have been going they've been dated back to 4,000 years. So just to give a perspective, that's as old as the Egyptian pyramids. And these clam gardens are regularly monitored and maintained like any other kind of garden. And I think clam garden's a bit of a misnomer. Maybe it should be like marine garden, because it's not just clams and other bivalves that are here, but many other species are also both higher in diversity and population numbers. There's been some work done in BC to demonstrate those. So a clam garden wall is just a low-lying rock wall below mean low tide. So this is right now you're looking at about a -2 tide. You can't even see this on a regular low tide. It has to be a negative low tide to be able to see the wall. But what it does is it builds up the sediments behind the wall and just flattens out the land a bit more, so to create more habitat for bivalves and other species, as well as the wall itself creates a lot of habitat for other species such as octopus, and also outgoing juvenile salmon have more hiding places. We've found that kelp particularly like to grow near the walls. There's also some upland plants that are more commonly harvested and found. We have a camas bed. It is in the upper left-hand corner of this screen. And I think the important part here is that this really is, one, a community-led project, and two, a very clear picture of both food sovereignty and a climate adaptation project, because sea level walls or clam garden walls move. You can move them as sea level rises and falls. So you can move them up the beach, down the beach. We've seen data that this has been done at other clam gardens over thousands of years. They also help attenuate waves during storm surges. So it's an idea of being able to better protect the important food resources for the tribe. These are a couple other pictures of people building the wall. We moved over 33 tons of rock to create this wall. We had folks not just from Swinomish, but from tribes up and down the coast, all the way out from Hawaii. We had friends from Hawaii come and help us. We had a couple of First Nations, I think even a couple of tribes from Alaska come down and help. I only included this picture because if Alana was here, this is a picture. She's the one bending over with the gloves in the front, helping to move the rocks. But she is a huge proponent of the clam garden wall. And I'm not sure if she's on now or not. Alana, are you on? Possibly not. But she speaks very eloquently to the importance of this wall for her ancestors. Two other things I wanted to touch on briefly is we created a native plants and food story map, and I can give you the URL for that. It's not Swinomish specific. It actually connects many tribes all up and down the coast and across North America that are working on food security and food sovereignty based on traditional plants and medicines. So there's many stories on this food map, as well as maps that actually show where these locations are, what people are working on, and what their connections are. This is one of the screenshots. This one is a close-up of the Pacific Northwest, and you can see some of the stories on the right that are connected to the dots that you see on the map. And the other thing I wanted to highlight is we created a Native Plants and Foods curriculum portal with several other tribes that work on Indigenous foods in the Pacific Northwest. This portal is free to access for anyone who's interested in the curricula that we have created. There are 5 educational toolkits and growing in this portal. So there's the 13 Moons curriculum, but also a lot of the curriculum such as 10 Gather Grow that some of you may be familiar with, that is taught all up and down the coast. So one of the main teachers, Elise Crone, she's worked all the way from Alaska down through Northern California. So there's a lot of really interesting materials and videos and all kinds of things in this particular portal. I will say you do have to create a login, and you are required to watch a video and take a quiz. And the reason why we did that, we thought long and hard about that, but I'll just say when it comes to any food security and food sovereignty work, there is some issue about understanding stewardship, which most tribes completely understand, but sometimes non-tribal folks are interested in these resources. And we really just wanted to make sure that people understood proper harvest practices, about, not taking too much, understanding the importance of reciprocity, and several other basic tenets of Indigenous plant gathering. So that is an overview of the work that we do at Swinomish and our program. We have a Facebook page. It's 13 Moons at Work. You're welcome to follow us if you'd like to. We post a lot of information about what we're doing every week, and videos and lots of other links. And we're always happy to talk to other folks about what they're doing as well. And if you are interested in any of the resources that I mentioned, I'm happy to share them. Just send me a message. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I don't know, Kelsey, if you want to have folks ask questions now, or should we wait until after Jackie presents? What would you prefer?
Again, I'm going to be off video, but I wanted to share, I actually found a presentation that will work for this, because I talk about food sovereignty so frequently. So let me go to, where's my slide now? Hold on, I got to move this stuff. Set up here. And presentation. Am I in presentation mode?
Yep, you're good. Looks
Okay.
good, Jackie.
All right. I had to move things around because I'm on my laptop. So I'm like, whoa, is this actually working? Okay, so yeah, Uvanga Tika Catalina, Dalakmichiska Jackie Schaefer. I'm Jackie Catalina Schaefer. I'm the Director of Climate Native Tribal Health Consortium. And my work kind of encompasses everything climate change. I do have the privilege of working with some folks like Melinda online, as well as our co-PIs on an NSF-funded project called the Study of Environmental Arctic Change, where we lead a team on the human well-being component of climate impacts. And so really privileged to work with her on that, and learn so much, because we're all interconnected. So that really is where I'm going to go with the discussion. Let me see if I could advance my slides, but they're not advancing. So let's see. Okay, there we go. So ANTHC, the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, does have a program under our wellness and prevention team at the Community Health Services Program. Programs that really focus on food sovereignty and food security. Store Outside Your Door has videos that are on YouTube. You could access them there. Food distribution programs. It says on Indian reservations, but we also do a USDA food distribution program to our communities for low-income homes. And what we've been able to do is replace some of the contents of that USDA packaged food with local foods, local fish, local meat. So kind of shifting the way we serve our communities. And then also the Alaska Plants as Food and Medicine. We have a regional symposium, but we also have staff that we work together. There's a handful of us at ANTHC that work with the university campus of Alaska Pacific University to teach a class on plants as food and medicine. And that is really helpful because you really infiltrate parts of the state audience that is not really familiar. I did hear Jamie talk about food sovereignty definitions and food security. We do have a collaborative at the consortia that focuses on food sovereignty across the campus. And I'll share a little bit more about that, but we have defined through our lens as the Tribal Health Network across the state, food sovereignty and food security are to us. And so we do have this definition that we work around when we talk about food systems. Our food sovereignty collaborative includes my program, Climate Initiatives, as well as our Healthy Homes program, Wellness and Prevention, and Training, and Emergency Preparedness. And so we across the campus look at it through multiple lenses and how the impact not only impacts health indicators and health outcomes, but also mental and behavioral health. I did see that in the chat, somebody asking about that. So we are looking across how this impacts us, because our connection to the environment impacts our health in many aspects, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And the nutritional values of these foods are definitely higher and healthier than Western food systems. Why do we do this? We do this. The little girl in the little parky in the bottom is my granddaughter. 2 generations. We want to make sure that they have the same access to the foods that they choose to eat. And those traditional foods have been in my region in Northwest Arctic for over 500 generations. So we want to make sure that 500 generations into the future that they have access to those same foods, and climate change is definitely disrupting that. Again, these are just images for folks who may not be familiar. I see a lot of tribal folks on here that I know, but for those of you who don't live in Alaska, our interaction with our planet and with nature and our food systems is basis and our way of thinking and processing not only the resources, but processing information is different. Our Indigenous worldview is definitely interconnected in a way that is, I would say, disrupted across the planet. So we have a uniqueness here where we're able to still continue to think in those thought processes, even with some of us without our natural traditional languages. Variety of aspects, and I'm going to just go through them really quickly just because it does matter, because these are seasonal aspects that when it comes to food sovereignty, we don't have enough information on food pairing, and it's something at ANTHC that we're very interested in. Our berries prepare our GI tract for fish and meat in a way that hasn't really been studied on the planet before. Food sovereignty and food security are seasonal in Alaska. We have multiple seasons, but food pairing is very, very common. We have tons of berries that we still harvest and preserve naturally from the land. And then we also have wildflowers and plants that we use as food and medicine. So these are some of the plants that I just wanted to share for those of you who are not familiar with our state. We do have we have 11 distinct cultures in Alaska, so we have very distinct ways of harvesting and honoring our lands. And in my region, Inupiaq is the value systems of the Inupiaq of my region, and we honor the land and the Nuna we don't over harvest, therefore we to harvest into the future. And again, these are 3 of my little granddaughters, next generation picking berries. Lots of plants, and I see my internet's kind of unstable, so if I freeze up, please just let me know. And these are cottonwood buds. We use plants as medicine, and it's really important to understand that and understand the traditional knowledge of it, because when it's mixed in with Western medicine, it can be very dangerous or detrimental because we don't know enough about it. So when we're talking about indigenous plants and food as medicine, we really need to become knowledgeable on Western medicines, especially if somebody is interacting those two. One storm could disrupt. This is a picture of after the remnants of Merbok, the typhoon, hit our traditional fish camps. One storm could take out everything you've harvested. The impacts to that have not been measured, but I will say, you know, this happened right after berry picking fish season and hunting season, and therefore everything, you can see the moose rack there in the tub. Everything washed away in those freezers for some of these people, as well as their fish camps. Their entire fish camps were washed away. In a Western context, they were considered recreational areas. In a indigenous context, they are a way of life. So that indigenous infrastructure, we need to change the terminology at the national level and make sure that this infrastructure is just as valuable as, say, a pipe, water, and sewer infrastructure or energy system infrastructure, so that we have access to replace and continue our way of living. I will reference the ICC Alaska Food Sovereignty project. I put the full report PDF, is the access is here. I'm just going to reference this. I am currently doing some work with ICC on the international level as a delegate across the circumpolar north, talking about not only climate impacts, but its intersection to food security, food sovereignty, and our indigenous way of living. I like to remind people to remember to compare their lungs to the limbs of a tree. We breathe nature, and we are nature, and nature is us. So we need to remember that food sovereignty is not just an indigenous Alaskan or indigenous Northwest topic. It is indigenous to all people who reside on this planet, because if we choose to continue to live on a planet, we need to make sure it's healthy so we could be healthy. So I'll leave it there for questions, and thanks for having me.